anybody who's a Big Ten alum, but I think that conference was weak. And I think, sometimes those guys they get overhyped because they went to Michigan or they went to Ohio State. Some of those guys can produce. Michael Thomas is one of them. Von Bell looks like he's going to be another. And Jabril Peppers looks like he's going to be the real deal. I think so, but I don't know that because I haven't seen him go against elite competition just yet. In the SEC, I know they breed winners. And I think Jabril Peppers and a guy like Jamal Adams from LSU are the same player. They just won't get the same amount of hype.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's always interesting when it comes to Saints and LSU because for a school that's less than, 90 miles down the road, the Saints seem to avoid LSU players at all costs.
Yeah, they don't touch them. I mean, there's no other way to put that. I think the last LSU player that they've drafted would have to be Devery Henderson.
Actually, it was Al Woods.
Al Woods, okay.
Yeah, Al Woods.
So a guy who never saw playing time.
He didn't. I don't even think he made it out of mini camp or something.
No,
like that.
He didn't. I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't even know if we should count him because he never saw a snap as a New Orleans Saint.
I mean, not a single snap. The last, and and that was the only player in the Sean Payton era because Devery Henderson wasn't an original draft pick of Sean Payton. He was here when Sean got here.
That's true.
Says a lot about Sean's, his thinking when it comes to LSU. And I mean, there have been some serious playmakers. I heard, many reports that should Lyle Collins would have, decided that, he wasn't going to sign with anybody after the draft or, he wanted to get away from Louisiana, that the Saints were trying to sign him. And look, if you wanted him, you should have drafted him. Bottom line. The same thing for the Honey Badger. Maybe he needed to go to Arizona and get away from the Louisiana for a bit. Maybe he did. Or maybe he could have came to New Orleans and been a stud. You never know. But the idea is that the Saints don't even put in an effort, which bothers me tremendously.
Well, I'll say that there's a couple of schools that Peyton has focused pretty heavily on. We've gotten several players out of Illinois, which haven't exactly panned out, but under his era, I mean, we've done several from Illinois, Ohio State. We got 2 from Ohio State this year, which we've done that before where we drafted people from the same team in the same year. And actually, Illinois, we did that with Nate Busey and Martez Wilson. But we also have done a lot of SEC teams. I mean, not just Alabama. I mean, we picked up people from Georgia, Florida, Missouri. But LSU is – and I'm looking now. I mean, I found Al Woods, and I'm going through everything, just trying to find, even before Peyton, the last LSU, Henderson, and then I'm still scrolling, waiting on finding another LSU. Okay, Nick Savoy, tight end in 1997. So basically in the last 20 years, we've drafted 3 LSU players. 2 have played, and Savoy only played 1 game. So honestly, Henderson's the only one that's played. And for the college that has the most players in the NFL right now, and we're, a 2-hour drive away? That's insane. That makes no sense. And I understand that the Saints love to draft offense heavy, and LSU's best players are defensive players, and they seem to get picked first. But how can you not pick up guys from, LSU or even Tulane when you've got scouts literally right there to watch them? I mean, they don't even have to really leave their house. They can go right down the road to watch the game. And I wouldn't be this upset if the New Orleans had, the University of Louisiana at Monroe 2 hours away. But we're talking about LSU, who is top 5 talent, NFL talent every year. Even if they're not producing the most, they're top 5. I mean, but yet we'll go pick up Alabama's players, and no offense to Alabama players, but most Alabama players are scheme players. So when they come in the NFL, they don't translate as well as LSU players. And we've drafted, 4 of those guys in Peyton's era?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been quite a few Alabama guys that'll come through, and as you stated, there's been other schools as well. But what I don't understand is the slight against LSU when, as you put so well, LSU leaves the NFL in players, more players than any other school. And I think the reason why Sean has an affinity for those Midwestern type of guys, or that, because he went to, Northern Illinois or something like that, or Illinois State, some kind of college up there. I forgot the name of the college that Sean Payton went to, but he seems to have an affinity for that area. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's great when you can get a Michael Thomas or a Von Bell and those guys pan out. Will Smith was another guy from Ohio State that panned out. It's great when you can do that. but you cannot ignore the talent that is right in your backyard. The one that gets me the most mad isn't any of the guys from LSU. As oddly as this will sound to some people that are listening in, the one that pisses me off the most, excuse me for saying it that way, is Cairo Santos. The guy that just kicked your head in with Kansas City a few days ago is the same guy that was right in your backyard. And guess who was his coach? Curtis Johnson, former wide receivers coach for the New Orleans Saints. You mean to tell me you couldn't pick up Cairo Santos?
Well, hey, not just that, they gave the guy a tryout.
Yes, and still let him walk. And it seems to be that Sean Payton, his tolerance for kickers is so short. But I think with this one, with Will Lutz, I think the problem is that Sean Payton has realized his patience with kickers has been so little that it's almost like he's going to stick with Will Lutz just to prove he can, because Sean Payton with kickers is just like Sean Payton with defensive coordinators. They don't last very long. And you've had way too many in a 10-year period. And I think he's almost hell-bent on saying, I'm going to show you guys Will Lutz was worth that pick. Does he have a strong leg? Absolutely. Is he accurate just yet? No, not. And most kickers have their ups and downs in their careers, yes. But my problem with it is just the idea that you had two kickers, Cairo Santos, you let him walk. He was right there in your backyard. And then you had another guy in Dustin Hopkins, which you thought, for whatever reason, you thought Zach Hocker was going to beat him out. And Dustin Hopkins goes on to have a great career in Washington. I'm like, I'm not understanding what is it that Sean Payton doesn't see.
Well, here's what I want to do. I want to switch over to you. I think that we might have a potential argument that we might disagree on, but I want you to bring up some ideas. I think that we're going to disagree on the potential for the Saints because you've been relatively optimistic. And after Sunday, I'm not being optimistic. I'm not going to feign like this team has a chance because I remember telling you last week on Who Dat Confessional, we were not going to win this Kansas City game. You're like, no, we can win 4 of these next 5. No, sir. No. You watch that game Sunday and you tell me that team is going to go and beat Seattle at home or that team's going to go and beat Denver. Please tell me that today.
I'm sorry, Rev. Repeat that last part for me, brother. Because I know you were clowning me on the fact that I picked Kansas City to lose that game, and oh man, I was so I kind of felt like the Carolina game all over again because I was so close. I felt like, you know what, man, this is going exactly the way I thought, and then all of a sudden the bottom dropped out, and I felt the same way about the Kansas City game. I'm like, okay, Saints go down, opening drive, touchdown, great, okay, cool. And then the very next time, Drew Brees, they don't play so well. All of a sudden, pick 6 going the other way. And, from that point on, it seemed like that pick 6 deflated not only the offense, but the entire team, the entire staff. And the Saints just never seemed to get it going. I've been having a back-and-forth debate about this as well on how well did Drew Brees actually play. Was Drew Brees better than he normally is on the road? Absolutely. I can't take that away from him. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 367 yards on a really good Kansas City defense. But was Drew Brees the same Drew Brees that we'll probably see at home? Absolutely not. I mean, if that game is in New Orleans and not in Kansas City, more than likely, I think the Saints rout Kansas City. I mean, not even rout because, I didn't see anything from Alex Smith or the rest of the guys that made me think that, the Chiefs were that much better than the Saints. I saw a lot of stupid mistakes on the Saints' part that had me believing that, you know what, they're not smart, they're not disciplined at all.
See, on that one, we found it. I got to disagree with you because to me, even though it was a loss, even though he made that mistake interception, that was the best game by Drew Brees this year. He threw 77%. He threw 7.6 yards a pass, 3 touchdowns. Basically mistake-free ball besides that interception. Even that interception was a timed route. I mean, he just threw a timed route. If you watch the play, it wasn't like he was, going through all of his receivers and had nowhere to go. That was a timed route that got jumped by a very good player, I might add. To me, that was his best game all year. Yeah, he threw an interception, but to me, that's better than the Oakland game where he was throwing bombs to Brandon Cooks that, helped elevate his stats. Better than the Carolina game, to me, where he threw 465 yards. That game was the best one to me because that was the accurate record-setting Drew Brees that we were used to seeing. And come on, let's not deny the fact that we're used to Drew Brees throwing 10, 15 interceptions a year. That's who he is. So I was okay with that. To me, that was his best game. I don't think if we go to New Orleans, it changes based on Drew Brees' play. And honestly, this defense has played so much better away than they have at home. I mean, they played better in San Diego, even though they gave up 34 points. They played better in New York. But when they were at home, I mean, they were trash against Oakland. They were trash against Atlanta. And they fell apart and became hot dog garbage trash against Carolina in the second half. So I think if we have a better chance at winning, how things have shown out this year, is when we go on the road. I mean, we should have won that Kansas City game, if a couple plays fall our way. But this team simply – and I think a lot of this is, you mentioned that deflated morale type of deal. That's just the team that we're at this year. We've had this thing where the past 3 years, we have this young team mentality where one thing hits us and we just don't recover. I mean, San Diego, we should have lost the San Diego game if they hadn't literally handed it to us on a silver platter with 3 turnovers in the last 4 minutes. That game was given to us. But, when they've played better, it's been on the road, so I can't go with you on that one, man. And yeah, Drew Brees and everybody is at home, but when's the last time that we had a home-style winning streak? What are we, 2-9 in our last 11 dome games? I mean, it's not exactly like we're playing lights out in the dome.
Yeah, I agree with that part of it, but I still think when you look at Brees and the offense, 21 points on the road. That was it. And it wasn't as if they came out to a 21-point, lead, and then they kind of let, like they did with Carolina, they kind of let the guys back in. 21 points, you scored on your first drive. You didn't score again until midway through the third quarter, and then you didn't score again until 2 minutes and 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter. For as great as Drew Brees might have been, what the numbers are going to show, like I said, that I believe it was 37 to 49 for 367 yards, the 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception. And again, I'll give him credit. The interception wasn't his fault. You can look at all of that and still look at Brees in the offense and say, well, what was going on? And I'm not just counting the fumble by Mark Ingram. Something was wrong with that offense. They had too many lows in the game, and as great as Brees played, it didn't translate into points. And, that's been my biggest argument. As far as, him playing well, his best game, it may have been. But I still don't see it translating. And when you mention that he's been better on the road, the team has been better on the road, I have to disagree with that, because I look at the Giants game. The Saints were camel piss in that game, man. I mean, they were hot garbage. So I don't think it gets any worse than that. I mean, you allowed the Giants, defensively, you didn't allow them to score. But the Saints couldn't get any points on the board, and the only touchdown the Giants scored was off a blocked field goal. So, I mean, if people want to take the good, they forget to take the good with the bad. Brees was good. He was pretty good at Kansas City, maybe even borderline great, outside of the interception and outside of the fact that the offense saw way too many lows. But you can't just say, okay, he had a great game against Kansas City. That means the road woes are gone, when he just had a game against the Giants in which he couldn't get absolutely anything done. So, I'm kind of looking at the totality of it all instead of just, the snapshot, which is the Kansas City game. Brees has to, I can play better on the road for them to win.
I can kind of see that, but here's the problem I have with it. It comes down to, let's not forget there's a lot of variables. The Saints were very penalty prone. We can say it in a nice way this past Sunday. And penalties kill the drives. For example, I remember the first quarter, there was that false start on John Kuhn, and then there was 2 delay of game penalties. And because you've mentioned this before, I put those delay of game penalties on Sean Payton, because it seems when Pete Carmichael's calling the plays, they get in, and we've got 16, 20 seconds on the play clock before we're snapping the ball. When it's Drew Brees and Sean Payton playing chess with their minds for 45 seconds trying to decide what of 70 plays to call, we get delay of game in the most important situations. So I put all that on the coach. And how many drives just got killed by – we'd start off for example, Saints came in shotgun. It was like second quarter early. Tim Hightower runs 12 yards run play. Did great. Immediately on first down, we go back to the pass. Incomplete to Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
And then we go and we try to run again, and there's Tim Melito. I'm actually looking at the drive here, so I'm naming it off. Tim Melito holding penalty. Here we are at 2nd and 20 after an incomplete pass, and then we do a little 7-yard dump pass to get some yards back, and then another 7 yards, and we miss it, and we're punting. So penalties and then just stupid play calling. I talked to Nick Underhill about this because he asked about it, but the Saints have started off their first drive, have basically